It's Volunteer Officer Picklestein, and I am watching you. Oh, I'm watching you. Like a hawk. Like a hawk!
Somebody needs a hug.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. Today we're going to be talking about the Boise Hawks, who play in the Independent Pioneer League. It's actually a Major League Baseball partner league. Later on in this episode, we will be speaking with Baseball by Design's wildlife correspondent, Ranger Amy Burnett, and of course, Dan Simon with one of his Studio Simon Stumpers. Right now, I am so pleased to be joined by Mike Van Heis, who is the Vice President General Manager for the Boise Hawks. Mike, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. How you doing?
I said good morning. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's that kind of day, Mike. Mike, first of all, did I say Boise right? Is it Boise or Boise?
Boise. Make sure
Boise.
you say it right.
I said it wrong. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for correcting me on that. It is the Boise Hawks. I'll just jump right in. How come a team in Boise, Idaho is called the Hawks?
Well, back in 1983, 1984, which was well before my time here, there was a name the team contest, like a lot of minor league baseball teams do. And not too far from here, about 10 miles to the southeast, the World Center for Birds of Prey, which is the world headquarters for the Peregrine Fund, which is the genus or whatever of that hawks are fall under, was built. And it was just a natural, and it kind of, when you really think about it, really flows off the tongue. We have a lot of birds of prey here, hawks included, more out towards the non-populated areas of Idaho, and so the hawks were one of them, and so we're the Boise Hawks now.
All right.
I've been so for a while.
So there's an actual facility there where they do education on hawks and that sort of thing. That's
it's a protected area. It's a nationally protected area.
Okay, very cool. Well, that's a cool connection to that nickname. I'm curious to know, I mean, this logo has been largely unchanged since 2007. The name has been in place since 1987. It's a pretty serious nickname. It's not cartoony. It's not, it's not wacky. It is created by Brandy Yost. That's some of their early work from 2007. Yes. What is the thinking for a now Pioneer League team to have this more sort of serious identity in a minor league baseball landscape that has, a lot of wackiness in it?
Well, I come from wacky backgrounds. Both the teams I used to work for have wacky or traditionally wacky names, I guess is probably a nice way to put it. But coming out here to the Boise Hawks, it's been a staple in the community. We've been the longest serving professional organization in the state. Professional sports organization in the state, and we've had iterations of that logo, and have had branches off. And like you said, the primary hasn't changed since 2007, but we have a lot of interesting spots where we'll throw in some different alt logos, and we probably have 3 or 4 alt logos at this point, and keeping with the traditional Boise Hawks, but still being able to have the wacky fun as much as we possibly can with our Copa brand and our brand with Wendy's, and some of the alt logos we have.
I'm curious to know, are you at liberty to say what were the other teams that you worked for that had the wacky identities?
I was started with the Lakewood Blue Claws.
Okay.
So and then moved on to the Augusta Green Jackets. So
Nice.
Seriously wacky names. They came out here and got very, very serious.
I did feature the Blue Claws. That is, I go to the Jersey Shore every year, so that's my old stomping grounds.
That's home sweet home.
Well, I noticed in your Twitter bio and hashtag LFGM, which I know is a not safe for family friendly podcast abbreviation for Let's Effing Go Mets. Let me guess what your favorite baseball team is.
It is the New York Mets. I'm an unfortunately long suffering New York Mets fan.
Well, I know about suffering. I'm a Phillies fan, so it's we've had a little success recently, but it's been a lifetime of suffering. But I mean, that's
imagine working for a Phillies affiliate for 9 years, being a Mets fan. It was interesting.
I can't imagine, actually. I mean, it must have been interesting to see players come up through the system and then end up on, a hated rival.
attend World Series parades. I mean, it was really tough living my life.
I will be seeing, I know we'll get back to the Hawks here in a second, but I will be seeing your Mets and my Phillies in London this summer. So I'm excited for that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
I'm very excited for that.
If I didn't have work in baseball, if we didn't have a game that day, I was probably going to be out there too.
That's a problem with working in baseball, isn't it? Is that you don't get
You
to
can't go to
travel to
many
see
baseball
baseball.
games.
I'm curious about the transition that this team made from affiliated ball to now the partner league with the Pioneer League. I have to say, I love the Pioneer League. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado. We have the Northern Colorado Owls with a Z right around the corner.
Yeah.
So it's fun for me. I took a road trip where I got to see 3 teams in Montana, and I got to see the Chuckers in Idaho Falls. Boise was not at home that during that trip.
Nah.
Otherwise, I would have found a way there. But how has that transition the last few years been from a branding perspective, from an identity perspective, transitioning out of affiliated ball and into the partner league?
On the branding side of it, we really got to take an opportunity to really figure out who we are and what we are doing. We no longer will fell under the Chicago Cubs or Anaheim Angels or Colorado Rockies brand. And so we kind of branded ourselves as Boise's teams, kind of branded ourselves as Idaho's team. The first year, our 2021 season, we had 3 players that were actually on the Boise Hawks that were either went to college in the Treasure Valley, or was from the Treasure Valley. We signed a kid from our local tryout who was the pitching coach for one of the local high schools, who hadn't played in a while. And he came out and was a great lefty for us. And so, our fans at the end of the day didn't really notice any difference. We were playing new teams. The manager was a local Boise staple in the baseball community. The players were familiar names that they'd either known, or one kid went to high school not really very far from here at all, and had been played college ball and then was playing in the independent ranks throughout the country. And then his last season, or his last 2 seasons, were able to play in front of his family because he grew up right down the street.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love that this level of community ball, and that road trip that we took, really highlighted what a great thing the Pioneer League is for baseball. I noticed though, speaking of your affiliated, non-affiliated status, that the Hawks team store has one of the old logos from your
Mm-hmm.
California Angels affiliation.
Yeah.
The Angels had the A with the wing. You have the H with a wing. It's
Mm-hmm.
an interesting. I mean, I love the logo. It's a really fun shirt, and I was having fun noodling around on your store here. But what went into that decision to say, like, okay, we're not affiliated anymore, but here's a classic old Major League Baseball logo that we've translated to our team?
It's been a logo that our fans for 30 years, or probably not 30 years, but 20 some odd years, really resonated with. They love the days of Tom Kochman, who was our manager, and they were winning championships in the early 90s with that logo. And it just so happened that one of our interns, his dad was a former GM here. And so he had an old school jersey and a hat, and he brought it in to wear one day and kind of show everybody because he pulled it out of the closet. And I instantaneously was like, hold on, let me take some pictures of that. And so now on Thursdays we kind of throw it back to the H wing days, as we call it. And those are the hats that we wear. We wear those hats and jerseys on Thursdays, and those are the ones that are flying off the shelves because you've got Angels fans, people with the first letter H in their name, fans, and Hawks fans just grabbing that hat. And it really has become kind of like the alt one brand that we use.
Nice. One of the other logos that I noticed there is, I mean, you have the ball with the hawk talons clutching it,
Mm-hmm.
but I see certainly the state of Idaho reflected on there. It seems like there's a lot of pride with this brand
Mm-hmm.
associated with the state of Idaho. I am acutely aware, living in Colorado, that this mountain time zone that I think a lot of people don't even really believe exists, that there's a lot of distance between teams at any level in this time
Mm-hmm.
zone, especially for you and me coming from the mid-Atlantic Northeast, where there's baseball around every corner.
Yeah.
How does that state pride factor into your branding as a team? How come you're featuring that Idaho state on your branding?
Idahoans are so proud of their state logo, proud of their state kind of, I guess, their brand, their the state flag also. And so if you walk into any small business that does merchandising or does, you're going to find something with the state of Idaho in it. And the Boise Hawks, we did an all hat or a fashion hat in 2018, 2017 with the state logo, with the state and the logo, and it just exploded and flew off the shelves. And so we kind of grabbed that logo and kind of said, all right, this is going to be something that we can use, and we use it on a lot of our jerseys, a lot of our alternate jerseys, alternate hats, because Idahoans, like I said, are so proud of the state and kind of what the state stands for, the Mountain Time Zone. We have everything here in Boise. We're a city. We're the most isolated city in the country when it comes to where's the next big city. Salt Lake is 4.5 hours away. And so we have to have everything. So we have big time college football. We have professional baseball. We have professional hockey. But 20 minutes in any direction, and you're doing 20 different things. You could be climbing mountains. You could be in the desert. You could be you could be camping in the woods, or you could be right in the middle of Boise. So we have so much fun with it, and with the state of Idaho, with that being part of our brand, and we've really grabbed it and taken it. And we like to brand ourselves as Idaho's team. You mentioned the Chuckers earlier; they're in Idaho Falls, and so we compete with them on a day-to-day basis of supremacy in the state and supremacy in the league. So it's another piece of competition for us. And we love it.
Well, and that's as a not an independent team, but playing in a partner league like that where your rosters are not being supplied by major league parent clubs. I imagine that competitive rivalry on the field is actually even more significant because you have to build your own teams. And so
Yeah.
I would think at independent levels or partner league levels that the competition on the field would be more important than at the affiliated level.
Yeah, we're about winning ball games. Development is great, and Pioneer League is a young league. You have to have 3 or less years of professional experience. Once you get that, you kind of quote unquote age out of the league. More experience out than anything else, and so we stay relatively young. Guys will be with us for 2, 3, 4 years, and you build those. Now we're rolling into our 4th year as a partner league. We're starting to build those long-standing rivalries. Idaho Falls rivalry is just a natural state to state, but Ogden, Missoula, and other teams in the league, they're becoming our natural rivals, and it's great. They come into town and we want to beat them, and so for when we're building a roster, we're building a roster to win. It's not so much of if you go back to the days of the Rockies here, if your closer had a 9 ERA. Because he just threw a straight fastball down the middle and people were just hitting it over the fence. He was still going to be the closer regardless if he blew games every day.
Yeah.
Here, if you have a 9 ERA, odds are you're probably going to be finding yourself off, somewhere else, going home or being traded to another league.
Yeah. You all have not done a ton of alternate brands, but one that I really enjoy that is, again, reflected on your website through a partnership with Wendy's, the Boise Baconators. And
yes,
that's is there a specific connection to Wendy's or to Baconators, or is that the result of the partnership, of a sponsorship?
It's a result of the partnership, and that partnership has exploded the last 2 years. During the MLB Home Run Derby, the local franchisee who was kind of 1A and 1B of the Boise Baconators brand went to because it was in Seattle and it was close. He went to the Home Run Derby and got caught on TV wearing his Baconators jersey a couple times. I guess he was just right in the right spot, and we were having a game at that time. And all of a sudden, the text message started rolling because it wasn't like one of 500 people in that screenshot. It was on Jim twice, 3 times, and so I was getting screenshots like, "Hey, is this the Baconators jersey?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And then you have to then I got to go back and I have to well, where is this coming from? Because I knew we were having a game at the time. The Home Run Derby was happening, and so that was awesome. And this will be the 3rd year of the Baconators brand. At the end of the season, we take all those jerseys. The team wears, we auction them off, and all the money gets donated to the Wendy or the Dave Thomas Foundation for adoption.
Oh, cool.
And so there's a local tie with the franchisee, but a national Wendy's tie too, because that's important to the Wendy's brand and important to the franchisee, and we've been able to raise $3,000-4,000 a year for them.
That's a very cool program. That's a great side note to that alternate brand there. Obviously, to go with the Baconator, you need French fries. So
Exactly.
your Copa brand is the Papas Fritas, Spanish for French fries,
Yes.
of course. What's the connection between Boise and Papas Fritas?
Well, it's Idaho, obviously, so
Oh,
we're going to talk about
duh.
potatoes. Um, but right in and the Papas Fritas unfortunately got kind of roped up in the COVID. We launched the Papas Fritas March 10th,
Oh no.
2020.
Oh boy.
And so we worked. We've been working on our Copa brand for about 6 to 8 months beforehand. We worked with the Idaho Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and got 5 or 6 different names. And we kept coming back to Boise Papas Fritas, Boise Papas Fritas, Boise Papas Fritas, and so that was the logo that we ended up working with Brandiose to do, and it's an awesome logo. Unfortunately, the real rollout kind of obviously got caught up in COVID. But every Sunday we wear our Boise Papas Fritas jerseys and hats, and it's our Copa brand, so we celebrate Hispanic heritage and give back to the communities to give back to those communities. And so it's a great brand for us. Our fans love the hats. We keep selling out of them. And so we can't even keep them on the shelves, but we love the Boise Papas Fritas. The logo's so cool. It's got the state of Idaho in the sunglasses. Some people will say it's a knockoff of the Aqua Team Hunger Force guy. But that's gonna have to be between Jason and the guys at Brandiose. But we love it and it's awesome.
You mentioned home runs, and I've been talking about the Pioneer League this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I have to bring up. I have been with the Owls with a Z here in town in northern Colorado, and that road trip that we took. The Rocky Mountain Vibes are down a couple hours down the
Mm-hmm.
road from me. I have been to a number of Pioneer League baseball games, and I have yet to see and I know there's an official name that I'm going to get wrong here, but the home run contest that the Pioneer
The
League uses,
knockout round,
the
yes. The
knockout round.
mm-hmm.
Tell me about the knockout round. I'm so jealous that of people who have gotten to see it. I would love to see it sometime at a game.
It's like Haley's Comet. You don't really get to see it too much, but when you do, you're kind of in awe of it. At the end of 9 innings, if the game is tied, we're an independent league and we have limited rosters. We don't want to burn our bullpens and we have such a tight schedule to play our games. We play the PBL knockout round, and it's essentially a home run derby. It's a 2-minute home run derby. It's either 5 outs. So you hit as many home runs as you can. You pitch to yourself. Either 5 outs or 2 minutes. It's an interesting way to determine games. We got a lot of national publicity when it was announced. When you talk to the old school baseball people, and they're like, "Well, that's not real baseball." But when you see it in person, it really is kind of a neat experience, and the tension and the teams really get into it because both teams will come out onto the field, and it really turns into the MLB home run derby. It's just the PBL knockout round. There's no timeouts. You can't do that where they come out and they bring them the Gatorade or the Powerade. But afterwards, it's like it's an event. It's a moment. And 3 hours after 3 hours to be able to determine games by that, and usually one or two will get it done. It's a lot harder than you think about it, especially it's really more on the pitcher than the hitter about making sure you get the ball on the right spot. And it's not something you really practice too much. You don't practice in hitting dingers. But when it happens, it's a lot of
Well, I'm dying to see it in person someday. I'd love to see it, and I know we'll get to a bunch more Northern Colorado Owls with a Z games this year,
fun.
and like I said, I don't know if I said this out loud already, but my daughter's at Gonzaga, and so we drive back and forth across Pioneer League country here a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll get to see it. Maybe this is the year I get to see.
This is the year. I got a good feeling that this is the year for
Oh, I appreciate that, Mike.
what you got to do is drive central when all 5 games, all 6 teams or 6 games are going at once. Whichever one you think is going to get closest to it, just start moving.
Perfect.
But everybody's like 7 hours from
I'm
each
gonna
other. It's gonna
do
be
it.
hard.
Just target the tie games. I've been close. I've been at games that were tied in like the seventh or eighth inning, or just one run
Hmm.
off, and so, you know. All right, last question here. It's an audio podcast, so people won't know I have to describe what I'm seeing here, but over your left shoulder on the wall behind you, you have the Ted Lasso Believe, the
Hmm.
iconic yellow paper with the blue writing Believe. And then you have what appears to be a signed headshot of the soup Nazi. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can tell me the story behind those two items over your left shoulder.
I'm such a huge Ted Lasso fan. Really, from the moment it came out, and even not being a huge soccer person or football or football as you want to call it, but the show I really gravitated towards the show. It was appointment watching for me. So I was actually at that's from the Seattle Mariners.
Mm,
On my birthday, my girlfriend booked a tour of the T-Mobile Park, and that was one of the giveaways they kind of gave us at the end. And so I've hung it up there since I got it 2 years ago. And then below, every year we bring in a B list or a C minus or a D list celebrity here, and Larry probably wouldn't appreciate me calling him one of those. I'll put him towards the top. But we had Larry Thomas, the soup Nazi here. We've had Mr. Belding and Sergeant Slaughter and Ted DiBiase, the Million Dollar Man. So the last 5 or 6 years, we bring in an actor or a WWE wrestler for a fan meet and greet, and that's one of our more popular promotions all year long.
that is awesome. That's totally fun. I love seeing that photo over your left shoulder there, especially since you're a New York guy, right? Like that
Yeah.
seems to make a lot of sense. Mike, this has been a ton of fun. I really appreciate it. Where can people find the team? Where can people find you on social media, online, etc.?
You can find us Boise Hawks Twitter or X, I guess. The Boise Hawks on Instagram, Boise Hawks baseball on Facebook, and then you find me Mike Van Heis everywhere.
Mike Van Heis. I'll put that in the show notes. Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good luck this
Thank you.
upcoming
Thanks for
season.
having me. Let's hope
Absolutely.
you catch. Let's hope you catch one of those knockout rounds.
Oh, I can't wait. All right, everyone. Welcome back. So happy to have back on the podcast for the second week in a row, Ranger Amy Burnett, Baseball by Design's wildlife correspondent. Ranger Amy, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Well, I'm very excited to be talking to you about this subject because while you are expert on many things animals, your wheelhouse is Australian Shepherds. But also,
Yeah.
after it comes to Australian Shepherd puppy dogs, your wheelhouse is birds. You love birds.
I am a bird nerd like you were a baseball nerd.
We were in Costa Rica and you said, let's go for a walk. And we stopped every 4 seconds so that you could stare into the bushes to see what bird you were hearing. And
It was awesome. I got so many birds.
yeah, and I got so much time standing there watching you look at birds.
You were miserable.
I don't know about miserable. I was in Costa Rica. It was a lovely atmosphere there in the Monteverde cloud forest.
Every once in a while I'm like, we have a lot in common
Mm.
because you look for baseball hats in a crowd like I look for birds.
It's true.
Like that other night, like someone said, that guy has an exploding whales cap on.
You're talking about at the Curved Brim Media meetup that we had just this past weekend in North Carolina. We had maybe 12 people. We were at the Carolina Mudcats game, and we saw a guy sitting 2 sections over, and our group was all abuzz, all a Twitter over the fact that there was a guy wearing an exploding whales from the Eugene Emeralds alternate identity.
The whole group stood up and just went, where? And wheeled around. And if you had had binoculars, you would have been using them. And it was almost like a bunch of people seeing a rare bird. And they're like, where's the guy with the exploding whales hat? And it was hilarious. And I was just like, yeah.
I definitely think there's overlap
That's why Paul and I get along.
These varying types of nerdery. There is definitely overlap.
I think so.
Bird nerdery is real. It is no joke. Bird nerdery.
Oh yeah. People spend millions of dollars. Like it's a huge industry.
Well, we are here to talk about the Boise Hawks. And the hawks, I understand, are a type of bird.
They are a type of bird. So hawks are kind of raptor. Not all raptors are hawks, but all hawks are raptors. And so if you're looking at a soaring bird with talons and a eagle looking head that's not an eagle in your backyard, it's very well could be a hawk. And they're pretty common all over backyards in North America, which makes it so fun that, for it to be a mascot, because pretty much everyone can recognize a hawk.
So it's not specific then to Boise necessarily,
Not at all.
but Boise will have plenty of hawks.
Yes, and they're pretty ubiquitous in in a place like Idaho, which has lots of forested areas and lots of trees and lots of meadows and places for hawks to soar over. And you look up and you're likely to see a hawk. Idaho has 17 different species of hawks. I had to look that up. Out of the 39 species in North America. So that's pretty good. It's a good place to look at hawks.
This particular hawk, this logo here, this red and orange hawk carrying a baseball bat. His wingspan looks to be about the length of a baseball bat. So that's no joke if that's to scale. And then there's also a version of this logo where it has a baseball being clutched by the talons of a hawk.
Pretty cool.
The claws on the end of these talons here look like they're kind of digging into the ball, which I think would probably get a hawk kicked out of a baseball game if they're going to be marking up a ball like that.
I think so. I think they'd go through a lot of balls.
How is that scale though? The baseball bat is, the wingspan of this bird is roughly the width of a baseball bat, and the ball is being almost completely enveloped by these claws.
Well, how long's a baseball bat?
So typically a baseball bat's going to be like 32 to 34 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Babe Ruth very famously had a 38-ounce, 36-inch baseball bat, a full 3 feet, I think, like roughly a meter, basically, for our Canadian friends.
Well, a red-tailed hawk is about 22 inches in length, but the wingspan is up to 53 inches long.
Okay.
So a wingspan of a red-tailed hawk is a lot longer.
So the wingspan is even longer than it's being portrayed here in this logo. What about the baseball, the way it's clutching that baseball? Could it wrap its claws or its talons all the way around a baseball?
Probably not. Now, a bald eagle could easily. A red-tailed hawk, I don't know.
Speaking of eagles and hawks, whenever we watch a movie and they show an eagle and they make an eagle sound, you always make the same comment. This is your comment every single time.
I do. I'm like, stop playing the red-tailed hawk sound for a bald eagle. I mean, it's just like they play a red-tailed hawk sound whenever they have an eagle or vulture flying by. And a vulture, do you know what a vulture sounds like?
Mm-mm.
There's dead air because it really doesn't make any noise.
Oh, I see. It's like
it hisses.
The giraffe say.
Yeah, exactly. It hisses, but that's pretty much it. They make a couple hisses and grunts, but not any like crazy soaring. So when you see those old westerns and they want to make it look like it's desolate, look alive. There's a buzzard flying overhead. Well, the buzzard's not going to scream at you. It's just going to look at you like, is he dead yet? Because they don't eat live things, they eat dead things.
Yeah.
But cool thing about those talons is that, like imagine you're trying to like hold on to my arm, like hold on to my arm as tightly as you can. Now, how long? I'm not convinced. How long do you think you can do that? Probably not that long, right? An hour and a half. Well, the way that the muscles in a hawk's leg works is that it's like a ratchet. So it's easier for them to grasp something than it is for them to be relaxed. So the default is actually to hold on. So it's easy for a red-tailed hawk, for example, to hold on to a rabbit and fly off with it and not let it go, because they basically have backwards tendons that are so that it's easier for them to hold on than to release, and they have amazing muscle strength.
So if they're on the baseball field, you don't want them pitching because they're going to be balking all the time. They're going to be starting to pitch and then they won't be able to let go of the ball. They just don't
release the ball.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a balk. So perhaps we want them playing first base. We need somewhere where they have to catch but not throw.
But they don't balk because that's a chicken. Balk, balk.
That's pretty good.
No, that was pretty bad. So the most common hawk all over North America and in Boise, Idaho as well is the red-tailed hawk. So that's the one that most people see.
Okay.
If you look up at the sky and you see a hawk soaring and it's a pretty big bird, chances are it's a red-tailed hawk.
Mm.
And I love when people are said, I saw the hugest hawk. He was really big. Well, the larger hawks are actually the female of the species. So if you see two hawks side by side, a mated pair, or an eagle, the bigger one's going to be the female. So in the hawk world, the females are larger.
Okay. See, we're out there making assumptions. What about other physical characteristics of the hawk that would apply on the baseball field?
Ooh, their eyesight is 8 times better than ours.
Oof. Pick up the scene. They would be a good batter.
Yeah, I mean, they would never lose a ball that was coming toward them or away from them.
Well, there has been a rash of players losing baseballs in the sun.
We saw a guy that just like he put his glove up and he just like, yeah, he was still staring up at it and it was on the ground.
On our baseball road trip this weekend. Yeah,
it was pretty embarrassing.
We saw a player lose a ball in the sun. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You can't see it. And then you gotta protect your face, and the ball lands 10 feet away from you.
Yeah. Well, and they have built-in sunglasses.
Oh, I see.
You know why hawks always look mean? Like, have you ever noticed that? Like,
yeah, because they're squinting.
Well, that's because they have this eyebrow that makes them look like they have like the mean eyebrow look.
Oh.
And it's a bone. It's called a suborbital ridge. And it actually kind of just protects their eyes from when they're flying or, their prey is trying to scratch at them. It's it's extra little bit of protection, and it helps them keep the sun out of their eyes a little bit as well. So they have like sort of a built-in baseball cap. It's kind of fun.
It's also a little bit like Uncle Leo on Seinfeld in the episode where he had the fake eyebrows and they were put on wrong and it just made him look mad all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's why hawks and eagles look mad all the time, but they really aren't. I actually volunteer at the Rocky Mountain Raptor program. And that's one of the things that that we talk about is how hawks can look really mean all the time, but they can be very afraid. And you have to really go slowly when you're putting the Jessies on one to take it out for a program because they're just so afraid of us and you have to be really careful. So they're sort of the chihuahuas of the bird world, actually, which is kind of funny to think about. They really are afraid of us and they're very fragile.
So I would say the big rivalry that has developed in the Pioneer League is within the state of Idaho, where you have the Boise Hawks and the Idaho Falls Chuckers.
Oh, yes, the Chuckers.
Yeah. So the obvious question, one-on-one, one hawk versus one chucker.
You know the answer without even me saying this. A chucker would be a delicious lunch for a hawk. A chucker is basically like KFC. Like they are a kind of game bird, which tastes delicious. People eat them.
Kentucky Fried Chucker.
Kentucky Fried Chucker. Hawks eat them, but people love eating them. Hawks, quail, grouse, pheasant. They're all they're in that same family of birds. They taste delicious.
They're just born lightly breaded.
They're only their only, hope is to outfly or out hide a hawk, but they're not going to fight a hawk. So a hawk's going to win that one.
So you've seen this logo.
I have
some early work from Brandiose. What do we make of this? We talked about the length of the baseball bat. We talked about the talons clutching the ball. What else do you notice on this logo about the Hawks?
So I took a look at this logo and I really feel like this hawk is depicting the Egyptian sky god who had a hawk head, Horus. When you're learning about the Egyptian gods in school, you might have learned about the mythological god Horus, and he was the sky god that had a falcon or a hawk head. No one really knows if it was supposed to represent a hawk or a falcon, but both hawks and falcons were prevalent in Egypt, ancient Egypt. And I think that this logo kind of represents Horus. What do you think? You're Googling as we speak.
I am. I'm checking them out side by side, toggling back and forth.
Like the colors of the logo. I don't think the fact that logo is golden is an accident. This is my theory, but I'm not sure if this is just me or, a coincidence. But one thing I can say is kind of an interesting fact is that Horus, the sky god, actually had his eye mutilated. And that's not a very good thing if you're a hawk. Do you know why?
Oh, I do know why.
Why?
I do know why, because
if you were paying attention,
hawks hunt.
When I told you,
they use both of their eyes for depth perception.
Yeah, they
Whereas
need
owls do
absolutely.
not.
Right.
So our owls with a Z can get by with one eye.
They can.
Yeah, but
Yep.
the hawks with an S.
Yeah, absolutely. Good job. I'm so proud of
I
you.
remember things.
I'm so proud of you for listening to me. We have at the Raptor program, we have a hawk named Barley, which came to the brewery the other day, which I thought was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But he only had one eye, and he can't be released because he only has one eye. And so they should have called him, I think they should have named him Horace, but
Ranger Amy Burnett, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your favorite thing, birds.
Birds.
Can't wait to feature the Australian Shepherds baseball team sometime. There's going to need to be an Australian Shepherds baseball team.
When are we going to have that?
Yeah.
I did get to see the Bat Dog this weekend, which was really fun.
You saw Ripken the Bat Dog at both the Holly Springs Salamanders and the Durham Bulls.
Yeah, he made a double appearance.
He did on back-to-back nights.
Yeah, it's
different ballparks, just like we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
Ranger Amy Burnett is on Twitter at Ranger Amy and on Instagram at The Real Ranger Amy. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, everyone, welcome back. It is time once again for a Studio Simon Stumper with my very good friend Dan Simon of Studio Simon, designer extraordinaire, creator of so many great minor league baseball logos, including the Burlington Sock Puppets cap that you are wearing right now. Dan, good morning. How are you?
I am fantastic, Paul. Thank you. How are things in Fort Collins, Colorado?
It's windy today here in Fort Collins, Colorado. This time of year in Colorado is very hit or miss. It could be 75 and beautiful, or it could be 20 and snowy. You just never know. Right now, sunshine, warm, but very windy. This episode, we're talking about a place where I will be actually driving through Idaho in the not too distant future to go pick up my daughter from Gonzaga University, which is in Eastern Washington, like just across the border from Idaho.
I've been to Idaho as well. Never been to Boise. Now, you have already talked about the Boise Hawks identity.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine you have not talked about this question I'm about to ask. Now, before I ask the stumper, this question I'm about to ask is not the stumper. This is just, I want to ask you, what would you say is something sports fans immediately associate with Boise, Idaho?
The blue and orange field in quotes, because I think it's basically just like hard sponge that the university football team plays on.
Exactly. And that is going to be the subject of today's Studio Simon Stumper.
When I do for work presentations on graphic design and I talk about complementary colors, I always show that a picture of that football field to show the blue and orange complementary pairing.
The very first brand identity I did when I was putting together my sports design portfolio many years ago, I was doing self-initiated brand identities, and the very first one I did was for a team I named the Bayonne Barnstormers. And the colors I chose, and I can choose anything, were royal blue and orange. So the colors of Boise State. Okay. So we mentioned that blue field that they have there in Boise is well known to sports fans. But what sports fans might not know is that is the nickname that has been given to this playing surface. So our Studio Simon Stumper today asks, which of these is that nickname? Is it A, Boise Bluegrass, B, Cobalt Carpet, or C, Smurf Turf?
I think that I know this one, so I'm not going to try to do too much sussing here. It's not Boise Bluegrass. I don't think it's Cobalt Carpet. I think Smurf Turf is the answer because it's not that interesting for a podcast, but I have heard the term. I believe that that's it.
What do you mean it's not that interesting for a podcast? It's fascinating.
I think that normally I'm like, oh, well, cobalt and carpet both start with a C. And cobalt was found underground as they were excavating the area to, like, I don't know. There was sometimes the sussing itself can be as interesting as the answer. And this one is, but though the answer itself is kind of funny. Smurf turf, I think, is pretty funny. And I'm pretty sure I'm like 98% sure that I have this one right.
Well, let's say that you're 100% sure because
All
you
right.
are indeed correct. Now, interestingly, as fun as of a nickname as that it was originally used as a derisive term.
Mm-hmm.
It was not the Boise State fans. It was other people who were deriding their blue playing surface. But as with some other nicknames that people have had, that perfect example of it, it's not a nickname, but I'm sure listeners of this podcast, being baseball fans, know that a white elephant is one of the symbols for the Oakland A's. And that came back when the team was the Philadelphia Athletics. And it was, I believe, John McGraw, the manager of at the time, New York Giants. This is back in, I don't know, the 1910s, 1920s, maybe, derisively referred to the Philadelphia Athletics as a white elephant, which is it's a negative term. I can't tell you exactly what it means, but wasn't meant to be complimentary. And the owner and manager of the Philadelphia Athletics, Connie Mack, took that and said, heck, I'm going to make that the symbol of my team. You use it negatively, we're going to proudly display it. And to this day, it's still used as one of their identifiers. So you took a negative and turned it into a positive. And that's what happened with Smurf turf. People now use it to endearingly refer to the blue carpet there in Boise. Now, that was the first college football field to be any color other than the traditional green, and was the only non-green field for 22 years before some other colleges decided, hey, it's pretty cool, we're going to do this ourselves. And so now not only are there several other blue fields, there are ones that are black, purple, red, gray, and even teal. The NFL, you don't see anything but green fields because the NFL has prohibited teams from having a playing surface other than the traditional green, and no team has tried to usurp that. So
I find it very difficult to watch when the field is, and I don't know if it's just because I'm not accustomed to it or if it's actually hard on my eyes. I mean, that blue and orange, there's a reason you're not meant to use really bold contrast on, projected screens, right? Like, I mean, it's hard on the eyes to see that level of contrast. And so I have trouble watching the Boise football team. I mean, I don't really care that much about college football anyway, but I find the different colored fields difficult to watch. I will also say that my grandfather had a purple jacket with the white elephant on it. He was a huge Philadelphia A's fan. And my grandmother, after my grandfather passed away, my grandmother said, "Oh, I'm going to give you that jacket." And I remember I kept sort of like angling for it and waiting for it. And then it disappeared somewhere. I think what I think actually happened is the same contractors who were working on her house who stole my grandfather's tools might have taken that jacket too, because that jacket was pretty sweet.
Gee, usually you can trust contractors.
What a downer to end this episode on here too. It's that's a bummer though. Whenever I see that elephant logo used with the A's, I always think about that purple jacket that my grandfather had, and he and I were sort of about the same height. Like that jacket probably would have fit me just right. So, not that I'd be wearing it around, I don't think. But anyway, Smurf turf. That's Boise. These teams that play out here in the made up Mountain Time Zone, need to do something to get the attention of the nation out there. And so that blue field is certainly one of them. Dan, thank you very much. At the time of this recording, I will see you with my own human eyeballs in the not too distant future.
I'm looking forward to the not too distant future.
And in the meantime, you can go find all of Dan's work, or much of Dan's work, on Instagram at studio_Simon, or on Dan's website, studiosimon.net. Thank you, Dan.
Bye-bye.